The Gothic author of some of the greatest short stories in literature, he is often cited as the father of modern mystery and remains something of a mystery himself. As it's his work we often hear the most about, today it will be about himself, Mr. Edgar Allan Poe. Born in Boston on January 19, 1809, Edgar's life began tragically. His father, David Poe Jr., left his mother after his birth and is assumed to have died the following year in 1810. His mother, Elizabeth Hopkins Poe, died the year after that in 1811, leaving behind Edgar and his two siblings. His brother William died at a young age, and his sister Rosalie later became legally insane. Edgar Poe was taken into the home of John Allan, a Scottish merchant in Richmond, Virginia. He was never formally adopted, but took on his new family's name as his middle name to become Edgar Allan Poe. He lived in England between 1815 and 1820, attending manor school at Stoke Newington, which would later become the setting for his story William Wilson. He returned to America to attend the University of Virginia in 1826, but was expelled after a year due to debts from gambling. In 1826, he became engaged to Almira Royster, but her parents broke the engagement. So, in 1827, Poe joined the US Army as a soldier under the name Edgar A. Perry. In the same year, his short collection of poetry, Tamerlane and Other Poems, received a limited release and very little attention. Eventually, he was discharged from the army in 1829 due to intentional neglect of his duties in determination to be released. It was then that he would publish his second book, Al Araf, Tamerlane and Minor Poems. Well, in 1830, a year after the death of his foster mother Frances Allan, his foster father John Allan married his second wife, Louisa Paterson. This led to tension between Poe and Allan, which resulted in his foster father disowning him. In 1831, from New York, he released his third volume of poetry, Poems, which again received little attention. After his unsuccessful early attempts at poetry, he turned to prose and pursued his dream profession, owning and editing his own literary magazine. In 1836, at age 27, Poe secretly married his 13-year-old cousin Virginia Clem, who was listed on the marriage certificate as being 21. The narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket was published in 1838 and actually gathered some attention. But in 1839, Poe published Tales of the Grotesque and Arabesque, which made little money and again received mixed reviews. In June 1840, Poe established plans to start his own literary journal, The Stylus, based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He originally wanted to name the publication The Pen, and even went to the extent of publishing adverts in papers announcing his decision. In 1842, a burst blood vessel caused his wife Virginia's health to deteriorate greatly. They returned to New York and Poe worked for the Evening Mirror, where in 1845 his poem The Raven appeared, and made Poe a household name. He was paid $9 for that publication. He became the editor and owner of the Broadway Journal, which collapsed in 1846, and the following year, Virginia had developed tuberculosis and died. Poe was devastated and wrote, "Deep in earth my love is lying, and I must weep alone." Poe had struggled for years with alcoholism and drug addiction. After the death of his wife, he developed erratic behavior and began to spiral downwards into depression and madness. He had a brief affair with poet Sarah Helen Whitman, attempted suicide in 1848, and in 1849 became engaged again to Almira Royster. It was in this year that Poe wrote his last complete poem, Annabel Lee, which revolved around Poe's favourite theme, the death of a beautiful woman, described by Poe as the most poetical topic in the world. Things got even worse, and in September 1849 he disappeared for 3 days after drinking at a party, on his way to visit his fiancée in Richmond, Virginia. Towards the end of the same month, he left Richmond on his way to New York, but never made it there. He was found a week later, delirious in Baltimore, and died soon thereafter in a hospital on October 7th at the age of 40. The circumstances of his death and why he was in Baltimore remain unknown. Poe never achieved the goal of having his own literary journal, and his life ended with as much tragedy as it had begun with. He is frequently portrayed in pop culture as a tormented character, yet one of the most influential and beloved writers in history. His work has been referenced in everything in nearly every form of media throughout the 20th century, holding its place in the academic world alongside the quintessential American classics. Every January in remembrance, an anonymous black-clad figure with a silver-tipped cane visits the Westminster Hall and Burying Ground in Baltimore, Maryland, where Poe's remains are buried. In the early hours of the morning, they raise a cognac toast, and still today, the Poe toaster leaves 3 red roses and half a bottle of Martell on the grave. The anonymity and act of the toaster has never been interfered with, assumingly out of respect for the tradition, and also perhaps for the mystery.